Hello, and welcome to the Authentically Elisa podcast, Unmasking Your True Self. I'm Elisa Bogarts, your guide on this journey to discovering the most genuine version of yourself. Each episode is a step towards unveiling the incredible power that lies within you as we strip away all the shoulds and shine a light on the coulds. Together, we'll explore the path of self-empowerment, self-confidence, and the courage to be unapologetically you. Thank you for being here. All right, so let's dive into today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and how to overcome it and live authentically. And today, my guest is Marla Bollak. She is a certified sacred depths coach trained in NLP, neuro-coaching, and trauma. Her mission is to empower professionals to clear blocks from within themselves and from toxic relationships in the workplace or family. Her approach integrates mind, body, emotions, and energetics. She works with highly functioning, successful professionals who have, read all the books, attended all the seminars, tried all the trainings with some success, and yet the problems remain. Welcome, Marla. I'm so happy to have you here. This is going to be a juicy topic. I am excited.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell me, how you got into this field of work and why you're so passionate about it.
I'm one of those people who started on the self-growth path at 14 or maybe a little earlier. So I've always been been there, and I've had a lot of challenges, and I figured out how to address a lot of them, and I just love sharing that with people. I love the intimacy of a coaching situation and seeing a spark go off in someone else and just helping to empower people. It's just something I love to do.
Yeah, I love that too about coaching. When you see someone starting to transform, it's just like, it just feels so awesome.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful to be a part of
Mhm.
that. It's just an honor.
True authentic self.
I think the number one way to be your true authentic self is not to care what other people think about you.
Mm.
And you realize some people are gonna love you, some people are gonna hate you, everything in between, and um, just be good with that.
Just don't care. It can be hard to be good with that though, because I feel like we're sort of like trained in society to care, to need that kind of love, safety, and belonging that we all sort of crave as humans, right? And it's like good to realize that you can get love, safety, and belonging from the people who do matter to you, but it doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be based on or dependent on what they think. And the people who don't love you, well, they just don't need to, you're not going to get love, safety, and belonging from them anyway. So just don't have that stress in your life.
I don't care who you are. There's going to be some people who don't like you, who criticize you, and that's okay. There's people I don't like. I criticize them. They're fine people. You know, just it's not a match.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's dive into overcoming imposter syndrome because this is something that I think, we all have and we all need to overcome. And I feel even like if you feel like you do overcome it, then something changes in your life or you grow and you adapt and you learn and then you kind of hit it again, or I find for me, like it seems to pop up in little places in my life as I try new things. So yeah, how do we overcome that?
Well, I guess there's two parts to this. First, there's overcoming and then moving beyond it. So, Maya Angelou, Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, there's plenty of high functioning people, very successful, who have said that they have imposter syndrome. And yet they manage to accomplish these great things. There seems to be some kind of mismatch between what they accomplish and how they feel about themselves. So I would say, number one is stop looking outside for validation. Now,
Right.
that's not to say, that's not 100%, right? You want to, especially if you're a business owner, you're putting things out there, you want feedback. And a minute ago I said don't care. Of course you want feedback,
Right.
but take it as feedback and not as a reflection on who or what you are.
Yes, exactly, and it's just feedback, and also you can take whatever you want from the feedback. You could take nothing, you could take part of it, you could take one little nugget, or you could, take the whole thing.
Exactly. And but don't take it to heart, so to speak. So it's
Yeah,
not a reflection on who you are. The other side of that is there may be some things that you can work on internally to raise your sense of self-worth. So it depends upon, there's imposter syndrome, and then there's that holds you back, and then the other one that just paralyzes you. I mean, some people
right.
will say, I'm not even going to go out there because I'm paralyzed and I'm terrified about what people will think. And that's when you may need to do the deeper work. I mean, it
Yeah.
never hurts to do deeper work, but
Yeah, I didn't really think about the fact there's so many different sort of levels of imposter syndrome. I feel like whenever it gets
Mhm,
talked about, it's always sort of like a kind of like a vague thing. Um, but yeah, it's so true to not stop looking outside for validation.
mhm.
And but that can be hard as well, even if like you can be super secure in yourself, sometimes you can still look outside for validation, especially if it's something new, or maybe just be like, am I doing it right? But I think you're right. It's more about getting feedback than being validated. Or because I remember my mom used to always say to me, do I look like mutton dressed as lamb? Which
Oh,
I thought was always in such an interesting, I guess it was like a saying. She's from England. But yeah, to me, it was always like, oh, like it always kind of broke my heart a little bit because I was like, that kind of comes
yeah.
from sort of, I guess maybe it's not imposter syndrome, but maybe a little bit, or maybe it was just insecurities. But I remember just thinking that she cared so much, being like, do I, yeah, look like mutton
Yeah,
dressed as lamb?
so imposter syndrome, a lot of people, it is kind of a vague term, but when you like look it up, so to speak, it's feeling like you are fooling people. So the mutton dressed up as lamb, because that's kind of a mask. The other part of it is, again, there's degrees, right? So it's just you're showing up, but you're like faking it. This whole and our society is like fake it till you make it. And
Yeah,
then on the other hand, it's saying, but show up authentically. You can't do both,
right.
not at the same time. So, show up as you are. And so the other part of imposter syndrome is a fear that you're going to be found out,
Mm.
that you're going to get caught. And the quote evades me at the moment, but that's actually Maya Angelou's quote, who's like, she's a Nobel laureate, and she's afraid people are going to find out who she is for real. Yeah, so those are some core things. And I think to the extent that you feel secure in yourself and who you are and okay with your warts and all,
Hmm.
that will affect you less.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of like the living authentically part, right? Like
Yeah.
if you are sort of living authentically, hopefully it will affect you less.
And the other part is identity. Who do you think? Now, I said, don't fake it till you make, but some people want to portray a certain persona as they go out.
Hmm.
Actors do this. And, if you're going to do that, that's, that can be authentic too. You're just showing, you don't have to show, when I said you accept yourself warts and all, but you don't have to show everybody all your warts.
Right.
I don't, and I'm pretty authentic. And I mean, some of them I will, but not all of them. So
Right.
I know who I am, and I know who I'm bringing to the show, so to speak, right? So I put on lipstick when I have to. I I normally don't wear lipstick. I mean, that's kind of a superficial thing, but I think that's the thing. I'm still the same person with a little lipstick on.
Right.
But, it's a little, it's a little bit of a persona, Marla with lipstick.
Yeah, authentically me is hanging out in my Lululemons on the couch all day long on a Sunday watching TV. And authentic me is also, in my running tights, training for a half marathon. Authentic me is also, dressing up and
Mhm.
wearing nicer clothes or wearing a dress out, and so they can all sort of be that you. Just because I feel like the authentic me is casual, at least it doesn't mean that I have to be, in my sweatpants everywhere I go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and so how, like in your bio when I read it, you talked about how you approach, um, you integrate mind, body, emotions, and sort of energetics into the work that you do. I
Mhm.
wonder, like how, like if you could talk about that a little bit and how it helps someone live authentically.
So what I generally do is I take whatever is your block or issue facing you, and then we're going to use that as fodder for the machine, as Ram Dass used to say, grist for the mill.
You just say, what
And
was that?
Ram Dass would say, grist for the mill.
I don't know what that means.
So a mill, when you mill, you give it. Do you know what a mill? You know what a mill is when you're milling wheat.
Mm-hmm.
So you put wheat into it, and out come, the whole wheat plant, and out comes, grinds it down to flour. So the
Okay.
wheat is the grit. The wheat is the grist. It's
Oh,
fuel.
okay.
Maybe I should just say fuel for your tank. So, but I use it whatever's happening. So we'll take imposter syndrome. So let's say so someone says, "Oh, I have imposter syndrome." Well, how is that manifesting? And I mentioned someone who um she doesn't even show up for talks. I mean, she there was a talk she had registered for, and she didn't even show up. And so I would walk her through that and say, well, how did you feel about that? What did you think about that? I'm going through this quickly. Would be more. And then, what were your emotions around that? And then we just go deeper and deeper and deeper and integrate all. So it's not just mindset. It's not just like, well, what are your beliefs? If you show up to speak at something, that's part of it, but also how do you feel? And then, you peel back the layers of the imposter syndrome, and whatever else comes up, because it's often, multi-layered, multifaceted. But
Mm-hmm.
this would boil down to, who do you think you are? And that's another way people express it. Who do I think I am to get up in front of all these people? Well, we will dive into that, the self-worth and the self-esteem, and then managing the energetics around that. All those
Mm-hmm.
layers, they all interact with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's something that, well, I think some people who are like into this work do, but actually sort of being in touch with your body, because right, your body reacts when your
Hmm.
mind thinks something or your emotions feel something, and or yeah, your energy changes. And yes, that comes up. So when you think about something like that person going to go speak on stage or what have you, right? When it's like that thought comes up, it's like, what does your body do, and how does that react? And yeah, where sort of does
Right.
that come from? Where do you feel it in your body to kind of show that, oh yeah, maybe I do have some imposter
And
syndrome here, something I need to work through.
yeah, and then how to manage your nervous system around that, so that before you get on stage or whatever, you're doing the breathing, or other things to bring your to manage. That's the more the physical part, so your nervous system.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, I think that can really work sometimes, and sometimes you can be on such like a low brain state or in such a stress state that maybe those things necessarily won't work. So you might have to have like different tools to use at different times. I remember one of my mentors,
Yeah.
Jennifer Grace, she's very, outgoing, extroverted, and does a lot of talks. And when she went to go do her TED talk, and so she's all about mindfulness. And so she like teaches all the tools and trains other coaches to be catalyst coaches. And So when she was like standing on the side of the stage, waiting to go on stage to do her TED talk. And she was like, I was doing every tool and I couldn't, like,
Oh,
I was so nervous, but I couldn't calm down. But speaking is her thing. And actually she was an actress as well. So like being on stage for her isn't a nerve wracking thing, but in this moment it was. But she's like, as soon as she stepped on stage, like it
she
all
was
went
okay.
away and she was fine and
Yeah.
she rocked it. Yeah. And so I just thought it was hilarious that someone her who knows it so well was trying all these things on herself and it wasn't necessarily working. But then I guess it did work, but it was just a bit of delay. Like when she was on stage, she felt at home and it all disappeared.
Well, but you bring up a good point. I mean, you can have all the tools, and then sometimes they don't work. But you know what? She got out there, she did it,
Yeah.
and she was okay. So, which is actually another one of the tools. You just like take a breath and go out, and boom.
Hmm.
And you can be giving a talk, and in the middle of it, forget your words, or if you're reading from a script, get lost where you are, and there's some resilience building, and mindfulness, of course, is big tool.
Yes. Yeah. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And
So
the thing,
you're developing a resilience, and so it is kind of funny that but that's like Maya Angelou, um, Meryl Streep, I mean, even people who are highly, highly accomplished and have been through it still experience it, but they move through it.
exactly. And that's kind of the point, right? To not
Yep.
let it put you in that freeze state or deter you from doing anything.
Yeah.
And I think that also if you show up, even through that, if you do show up and do the thing, whatever it may be, authentically, I think that, things will kind of work out. Even like you were saying, if you are on stage and you muddle up your words or you forget where you are in the script, you could even just say it. You're like, oh, I kind of forgot where I was right there, and just sort of do it authentically or make a little joke or something like that to kind of break the tension and just
Yeah.
and just be honest and open.
Because people can tell. I mean, so you might as well be honest about it.
Yeah, and I even think about that, like, I had it recently where I was switching, sort of who I work with, and I'd be working with people who were, you know, much more established in their businesses than I was, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh, like, and I noticed that, like, if I just, because I'm very much a person where I think that we're all equal, and so I don't have a problem talking to anybody because I think we're all just
Right.
people, and so just you're a
Mhm.
person, I'm a person, like whatever, like why I don't think any of that other stuff matters, and so often have no problem with that. And then, but it was like, but if I'm gonna go talk to them more as like, oh hey, I want you to hire me. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, the imposter syndrome came up on that, right? So I was like you're saying, who am I to ask them to like give me money, and or to change that conversation just from being sort of equals talking to actually like inviting into like a sales conversation. And I noticed that that kind of came up, and I was like, oh, but then I was thinking, well, why did that change in my brain? I'm still just having a conversation with this person who's just a person. you
Well,
know?
there's a lot more there involved, that maybe asking for help, asking for something for yourself. There could be a lot of things there, and just being, make possible rejection.
Right.
Maybe you had a lot at stake. I mean, I don't know what was going on with you, but there's so many things it could be, and it seems like a very natural thing to me. I think that's very common.
Exactly. And I think also like it's like, well, you know what? If I just show up being me and have a conversation, then, and I think that if I show up authentically, that everything will go so much better. I don't have to pretend to be anything else or pretend to be
Yeah.
super professional or say the right words or have it scripted in my head. Like just go have a conversation. It's all good.
Yeah, and I think also having, the first time is the hardest. So again, I don't know what, but where this happened to you, but it's like after 100 times, So I'm a potter, and when I started, every piece was so like, oh, I don't want it to break. And then when you're like throwing 100 mugs, it's like, okay, one of them breaks, so what?
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna happen. I
It's
mean, you
gonna
don't want to lose
happen.
any of them, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, and it's okay, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Oh, well, this has been such a great conversation. We, talked about so many things about overcoming imposter syndrome and how to really move past it and to really stop looking outside for that validation, being really more secure and confident in your authentic, beautiful self. And that there's like so many different ways about imposter syndrome, and that one of them could be even about fear of getting caught faking it, and so that can come up as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you. So how can our listeners find you online?
Well, I have a website, marlabollak.com. It's my name. I'm
Perfect.
also on LinkedIn and Facebook. I have a podcast called The Road to Empowerment that's in all the places.
Awesome. Yes, I'll definitely have all of that in the show notes. So to end us off, do you have any final words of wisdom?
I think just it's funny because I talk about these things and I am so inner directed that it really is pretty easy for me. And I will tell you, if you start to become, the more inner directed you can become and rely and understand that other people's opinions are just that, it's not the truth, the easier it becomes. It can be really easy. And I guess I want you to know it can be easy.
I love that. That's the perfect way to end this. It can be easy.
Yeah.
Note to all you out there, it can be easy. Sometimes things are as difficult as you make it. So you could also make it as easy as you want to make it. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our talk.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it inspired you to live a more authentic life. I'd love your help in inspiring more people to live authentically. So please follow, rate, and leave a review so we can create a ripple effect of authenticity. Until next time, stay true to you, be bold, and thrive on your own terms. This is Elisa, signing off authentically.